In 1966, the vice president of the Carnegie Corporation met an impressive young visionary at a dinner party in Manhattan. One thing led to another, and long story short, the two of them set in motion something that's been said to be the most ambitious experiment in children's television since its inception. That experiment? The sweetheart of public broadcasting, Sesame Street.
Sally, you've never seen a street like Sesame Street. Everything happens here. You're gonna love it.
The show was born amidst such towering figures as Bob Keeshan, Robert Hom, and Fred Rogers. These three men were affectionately dubbed the pioneers of children's programming by Atlantic reporter Norman S. Morris in his article anticipating Sesame Street's 1969 premiere. The show has since outlived its forefathers by decades, most recently celebrating its 46th year on the air in 2015. So what has made Sesame Street so special that it's left such national treasures as Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the dust? It all comes down to three simple concepts: exploration, encounter, and exchange.
Sesame Street certainly wasn't the first in children's TV to make use of puppet characters, nor the first to abandon the condescending tone characteristic to children's programming of the day, but it was the first to explore and unlock the full potential of television in preschool education. Joan Gans Cooney recognized, in her proposal to the Carnegie Corporation, the challenges she would face in creating new, gripping approaches to the same subjects which were already being taught on television. Still, her 56-page report is saturated with solutions to her problem. Cooney observed that America's youth, who could, on average, identify and request their favorite television programs by the age of 3, were most attracted to the fast pace of shows like Batman and loud, lively commercials. She then came to the conclusion that, in order to hold the attention of the little ones, Sesame Street should have a magazine-type format consisting of short segments in different styles, like animation and film. Cooney was also quick to identify another major issue with children's programming early on. No one was finding reception with children in ghetto areas. Outreach to low-income Americans had become a principal focus, not only in the entertainment industry, but in the federal government as well. President Lyndon B. Johnson had declared a war on poverty just 2 years earlier, and the government-funded Project Head Start had launched in the summer of 1965, with its mission to provide health and education to children and families of children facing economic adversity. The show's staff struggled with establishing strategies to contribute to the effort itself, until director John Stone suggested that the show take place on a gritty, inner-city street as opposed to a fantasy world of abstract shapes and vibrant colors. The relatable atmosphere of the show drew in a massive and loyal viewership among target audiences by the end of the first season. For example, a survey conducted after Sesame's first season in 1970 contended that in Bedford-Stuyvesant, a predominantly low-income area in New York, nearly 90% of children ages 2 to 5 tuned in regularly. Both experiments in the still shiny medium of television were wildly successful, and with the attention of 1/3 of the nation's toddlers on them from the early 70s, the Sesame Street team found themselves in an incredibly powerful position. From the very beginning, a huge part of what made Sesame Street so unique was its all-inclusive spirit. So, from the very beginning, the show encountered controversies. As the nation had just sprung free from the clutches of the civil rights movement, Joan Gans Cooney knew exactly the statement she was making when she gave her non-negotiable demand for a multiracial cast for the show, consisting of 2 whites and 2 Negroes, or Puerto Ricans. Mississippians were so disturbed by the thought of racial integration on their children's programming that they demanded Sesame Street come off the air, but the show didn't budge. Publicly funded, Sesame Street acted as a sort of beacon of hope for the federal government during years of anti-government outcries. America was in the throes of the war in Vietnam and in between rights movements, and needless to say, tensions were high. Sesame Street was a source of positivity and good that had come from the government, so it wasn't going anywhere. In fact, Sesame Street would live to encounter complicated events and concepts, as well as the challenge of explaining them to children, for decades to come. With the help of the show's team of leading psychologists and child developmental experts, Sesame Street would later tackle such subjects as Hurricane Katrina and the events of 9/11 in a way that was simple, thoughtful, and would appeal and bring comfort to both child and parent.
Ooh. But, Mr. Bill, like to know a secret?
What?
Well, Elmo was scared before, but Elmo isn't scared anymore.
There was also the issue of teaching the young viewer about unshakable concepts. For example, the infamous episode regarding the death of cast member Will Lee, and with him Mr. Hooper, in which the adult characters have to teach Big Bird about what death really is, and how to cope moving forward.
Big Bird, Mr. Hooper's not coming back.
Why not?
No matter what challenge Sesame Street came in contact with, the show's utter respect for its viewers was undeniable and made for ingenious content that just couldn't be contained. As early as 1970, Sesame Street was being made available in Canada, Japan, the Philippines, Israel, Germany, and 18 additional countries. Today, Sesame Street has a staggering 147 co-productions worldwide, all participating in a massive cultural exchange, an endeavor which has been viewed as one of the most successful examples of public diplomacy to have ever been launched. The Children's Television Workshop even managed in 1997 to convince Israelis and Palestinians to hold a joint production of Sesame Street, so that they may plant a little seed for peace. Before Sesame Street first aired, the Children's Television Workshop stated that their objective was to promote the intellectual and cultural growth of preschoolers, particularly disadvantaged preschoolers. This statement is especially meaningful in developing nations and third world countries, like South Africa, which holds the branch Takalani Sesame and various variations of it. This show takes an approach similar to the one used by Sesame Street to educate young children on regional issues like malaria prevention, while allowing them to learn in their own language and on their own terms. The show even has a character named Kami who is HIV positive. Kami is representative of the 6.3 million people living with HIV in South Africa, but she also loves to read, sing, and solve scientific conundrums.
And do you tell everybody that it is okay to hug someone who is HIV positive like me?
I sure do, Cammy.
That makes me very happy.
As massive as the world of Sesame Street is today, the team at the original branch of the show have gone out of their way to promote multiculturalism as well, both cast and crew. For example, behind the scenes, the puppeteer behind beloved character Elmo, Kevin Clash, meets with the puppeteers from co-productions of the show to share tips and swap techniques. While on screen, cast member Sonia Manzano performed Hola, a song she wrote about the wonders of being bilingual, which she sang with Emilio Delgado while dressed as American icons Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers.
Latins from Alaska or from Spain or Nebraska will say hola when they mean hello.
Latins from Havana or Detroit or Montana know that's just how the old greeting goes.
Over the years, Sesame Street has accomplished incredible things. It's made television a safe place, debunking early fears of the electronic babysitter. It has taught valuable lessons to and increased literacy in generations of American preschoolers, and it has spread a sense of unity and a desire for coexistence all over the world, whether that coexistence occurs between Israelis and Palestinians or furry monsters and old friends. From its humble beginnings in an old lot in Astoria, Queens, the show has become an anthology of American history. As funding for the show dwindles and it makes the move from public broadcasting to premium cable, we should all take a moment to remember just how we got to Sesame Street, that long and winding road that started right in our backyard.
I'm leaving.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks.
Whoa.